वेलकम एवरीवन, स्वागत है सभी का। टुडे वी विल स्टडी द फिफ्थ चैप्टर ऑफ बुक इंडियन इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट। द नेम ऑफ द चैप्टर इज ह्यूमन कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन इन इंडिया। In this chapter, we will read in detail about human resource, human capital, and different things as is written here. The concept of human resource, human capital formation, and human development. We will also see the difference in these concepts. That is the concept of human resource. What is human resource? What is human development? We will also see the links between investment in human capital, economic growth, and human development. We will also see the need for government spending on education and health. At last, we will see the state of India's educational attainment. That is from independence, whether we have improved in different educational indicators and different parameters or not. We will see all these things in detail. Here is one quote is which has been given by Alfred Marshall. What Alfred Marshall has said, that expenditure on public expenditure on education, uh, it does not give direct fruits alone. It does not give direct fruits alone. It will be profitable as a mere investment to give the masses of people much greater opportunities than they can generally avail themselves of. Okay, we can understand that educated person can earn better than an uneducated person, than a labor. Okay, so we can imagine that many people have died because they have not realized their latent abilities, the abilities which are hidden inside them, because they were unable to explore their hidden abilities due to lack of education, because they have not got education, training, and all that. So education and training, all these things have important place in one's life. It helps one to grow better, to perform better, to lead a better life, a good quality of life. Let us look at the introduction. uh, think of one factor that has made a great difference in the evolution of mankind. Okay, what is that factor led to which has made a great difference in the evolution? This is man's capacity to store and transmit knowledge. Because a person can store knowledge, we can store knowledge, we can transmit knowledge from one person to another, from one generation to another. Okay, we how we transmit this knowledge, how we give this knowledge from one generation to another, through our writings, through our songs, through our conversation with each other. Okay, but so we have realized that training and skill are very important to earn better, to improve our life, and to do things efficiently. We all know that skill of an educated person is more than that of an uneducated person, and the educated person is able to generate more income than uneducated person. Okay, if someone is getting more income, it means he is contributing more to our economic growth, because his income is finally added to our national income. So if we have more educated people, more skilled population, it means our GDP will increase, our national income will increase, our economic growth will increase, and the size of our economy, the national income of our economy will grow. Education is not only as it confers higher earning capacity on the people, but also for its other highly valued benefit. What are those benefits? For example, if you are educated, you will get more respect, you will have better social standing. Okay, but if you are uneducated, no one will respect you, no one will give you the better job opportunities, and finally you will not have a good quality of life. Okay, education also provides you knowledge. Education also provides us knowledge to understand the things that are taking place in society. Okay, whatever is happening in society, what bill government is passing in parliament, what impact does it have on our economy. And educated person innovate innovate the things. He has more innovation capacity than an uneducated person. Moreover, the ability of educated labor force facilitates adoption of new technologies. Economists have stressed the need for expanding educational opportunities in a nation as it accelerates the development process. You have seen that educated person have more earning potential and earns more than uneducated person. Therefore, if we want to increase our economic growth, if we want to increase our economic growth, then we have to increase expenditure on education. Okay, here is a picture, but this picture shows that person who have technology, who have skill, is able to produce more from the same piece of land. But the person who is doing everything manually, he's threshing manually, he's plugging manually, he's the collecting grains and the grinding all that he's doing manually. His production is less. His production is less. His production is greater. Okay. So from here we can conclude that person with better training, better education can produce more, and he will get more income. Now we will see what is human capital. It is very important concept. We are studying human capital formation in India. But before that, we must know what is human capital. Just as we need physical resources like land, different natural resources like the these iron, mountains of iron and minerals, all these mines, rivers, land, fertile land, all these are natural resources, and these resources can be converted into physical capital. Okay, like factories, machines, buildings. Similarly, we can also turn human resource into human capital, like nurses, farmers, teachers, students, into human capital like engineers and doctors. Okay, if we provide better education to students, if the farmers are trained, if our farmers are trained to equip them with the latest technology, nurses are also trained to give the better care and hospitality and all that, their potential will increase, and they will with better human capital. Okay, if we are training them, if we are spending them for the development of their potential, it means we are converting human resource into human capital. Okay, so societies need sufficient human capital in the first place. So first of all, we have the need of human capital in the form of the competent people, in the form of competent people who themselves been educated and trained as professors and other professionals. Okay, if we want to increase our economic growth, then at the first place we need better human capital, sufficient human capital in the form of competent people. Competent people means those who are aware about the latest technology, those who have skills, those who have knowledge. Okay, in other words, we need good human capital to produce other human capital. Okay, if we have better teachers, then we can further produce better teachers. Okay, if we have better farmers, we can further produce more better farmers. So first of all, we need good human capital to produce other human capital, say nurses, farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers. Okay, this means that we need investment in human capital. Okay, just as we need investment in physical capital, we also need the investment in human capital on our human resource to produce more human capital out of these resources. Okay, so it means we need to spend more on education, we need to spend more on health, we need to spend more on the infrastructure so that our human capital can be increased. Let us understand a little more of what human capital means by posing the following questions. First question is, we can understand human capital better if we pose these different questions to us. If we ask this different question to ourselves. Okay. First of all, what are the sources of human capital? What are the sources of human capital? You have already read on the job training. Okay, different there are different sources of human capital. We will read this individually also. Is there any relation between human capital and economic growth of a country? So we will also this relation individually in a separate topic. Third is the formation of human capital linked to man's all-round development, or as it is now called, human development. Okay, that human capital can be linked to man's all-round development. So human development is another topic which we read in this chapter. Fourth question is, what role can the government play in the human capital formation, human capital formation in India? So what is the role of government? We will all see the answers of these questions in detail. Okay, let us see them one by one. Okay, first question was, what are the sources of human capital? Dear students, we will see what are the sources of human capital. We know that the investment in education is one of the main sources of human capital. But there are several other sources like investment in health, on the job training, migration, information. All these are different sources of human capital. One, you can say human capital. Second, you can say investment in health. Third, you can say on the job training. Fourth, you can say migration. And fifth is information. All these are the sources of human capital formation. Students, you know why your parents spend on your education? Because they want to turn you from human resources to human capital. Because after getting better education, after getting better skills and training, you will be a better human resource and you will contribute more to the economy and you will have more earning potential. You will earn more than uneducated people. Okay, this is the reason why your parents spend on your education. Like education, health is also considered as an important input for the development of a nation. Okay, you can understand that an educated person will get higher salary, and this higher salary will be counted in our national income. As a result, the income of our country will increase, and ultimately, it will lead to the development of a nation. You can understand who can work better, a sick person or a person with sound health. This thing you can imagine. Obviously, the person with sound health can perform better. Okay, he will spend more, he will, give more time to his work and will earn more. Now we will see the things we can write in our this health sector. First is preventive medicine. Okay, to improve the health situation of our health of the people of our country, which is also considered as important source of human capital formation. First is preventive medicine, means vaccination. Second is curative medicine. What is this curative medicine? When we intervene when there is illness, for example during COVID-19 period, government is intervening. Yes, government is intervening and providing health facilities to the people, providing medicines to the people. Third is social medicine. Now what is this social medicine? Means health literacy. Spread of health literacy. For example, government aware people while writing on the walls of public that do these things, these are the do's and don'ts during this time of COVID-19. What you should do, what should you should not. Okay, do's and don'ts are campaigned by the government. This is social medicine. Okay, knowledge about how we can maintain our health, and provision of clean drinking water, good sanitation. All these are the various forms of health expenditure through which government can turn the human resource of our country into human capital. All this helps in the formation of human capital, because healthy person can contribute more to the economy. Health expenditure directly increases the supply of healthy labor force and is thus a source of human capital formation. Okay, you can understand this thing easily. Now we will see all these sources of human capital one by one. First is on the job training. Okay, why firms gives on the job training to their workers? Because finally they will get more output from the same workers. This is the reason why they are giving on the job training. This on the job training can be given by the trained persons in the firms, or the persons or the workers can be sent for off campus training. Okay, so on the job training is also important to increase the efficiency of the workers. Okay, this is on the job training. Second is migration. How migration is a source of human capital formation. We all know that in our country, migration is a continuous process. We have seen in times of COVID-19 that laborers migrate from Mumbai to UP. In fact, different parts of the country, we have seen a large migration during COVID-19 time. Okay, this is the thing practically we have seen during present time. Okay, so people migrate. Why they migrate? To get higher salaries. Okay, they often do the cost benefit analysis of their salaries at their native place and salaries they get when they migrate to another place. Okay, after this cost benefit analysis, they decide whether to migrate or not to migrate. Okay, another thing is rural urban migration. Okay, people continuously migrate from rural areas to urban areas, and you see the different slums and the laborers residing in the the dirty areas out are in the on the outskirts of the these urban areas. You have seen this type of people. All these people migrate from rural areas to urban areas for better employment opportunities. Okay, somehow they could not get opportunities to settle there and wait for work. Okay, technically qualified persons like engineers and like doctors migrate to other countries because of higher salaries that they may get in such countries. Okay, we have seen the migration in inter state migration or migration within our country, but we also see the different people migrate to other countries for work. For example, people in Kerala migrate for better earning in different countries. So you can understand the migration involves cost of transport, higher cost of living in the migrate place, and psychic costs of living in a strange socio-cultural setup. All these cost benefit analysis is done by individuals who want to migrate. Of course, migration increases the earning potential of an individual. Therefore, migration is also considered as source of human capital formation. Okay. Next is information. Information is also source of human capital formation. For example, you get the information of the labor market. You can get the information of the labor market, like other markets, for example, education and health. You want to know what are the salaries associated with the various types of jobs. What are the different educational institutions in the country which can provide you the better employable skills. Okay, so information is also an important source of human capital formation. Students, this is a box 5.1, physical and human capital. Here you can understand the difference between physical capital and human capital, and in fact you can also understand the characteristics of physical capital and human capital. There are different things you can understand about physical capital and human capital. Okay, you can understand, you can read this and understand this better. Okay, from there you will get different points of difference. For example, human capital, physical capital depreciate with time, but human capital also depreciate. But if we made continuous investment like training to the human capital, we can stop this depreciation of human capital. Okay, so physical human capital benefits not only the owner but also to the society in general. Okay, human capital benefits to the society in general, but physical capital does not. Okay, because it is private. Physical capital, human capital has external benefits. An educated person can effectively part in the democratic process and contribute to the socio-economic progress of nation. He can, go in election and fight there and be a leader in the assembly or in the parliament. Okay, so in this way he can contribute. And a healthy person, this yes, healthy person by maintaining physical health and personal hygiene, sanitation can stop the spread of these contagious diseases and epidemics. So human capital creates both private and social benefit, but physical capital creates only private benefits. All these are the points of difference you can notice from this box. So the concept of physical capital is a base for conceptualizing human capital. We can understand human capital just as we can understand physical capital. Okay, on the same lines. There are some similarities between the two forms of capital, but there are some striking dissimilarities as you have seen in box 5.1. Human capital and economic growth. The second question we have posed to ourselves was what is the relation between human capital and economic growth? Whether better human capital can lead to the economic growth of a country. You can understand who contributes more to national income, a worker in a factory or a software professional. This is a simple answer. You can get a simple answer. You can imagine a simple answer. That software professional earns better. He can contribute more to national income because he has skill of designing different software. He has more earning potential. Okay, we know that the labor skill of an educated person is more than that of an uneducated person. And the educated person generates more income. If he generates more income, it means he can contribute more to the national income. Okay, so a healthy person can provide uninterrupted labor supply for a longer period of time. Therefore, health is important factor for economic growth. Okay, we can understand this thing. It is quite simple. Thus, both education and health, along with many other factors like on-the-job training, job market information, migration, okay, increase and individuals income generation capacity. Okay, all these are sources of human capital, and these sources increase the earning potential of an individual. This is the picture of a school being running in shift premises in Delhi. So in shifts the school is running. Students are coming to this temporary school for education. So the enhanced productivity of human beings or human capital contributes not only towards increasing labor productivity but also stimulates innovation and creates ability to absorb new technologies. So if you are educated, you can absorb different happenings, different new technologies that are coming in the market. You can adopt themselves easily with the new technology. So education also provides you the knowledge to understand the society and different scientific advancement. It also facilitates inventions and innovations. Okay, so you can understand that that educated labor force facilitates adoption to new technologies. They can understand easily the different new technologies available during the time. Empirical evidence. Okay, the empirical evidence to prove that increase in human capital cause economic growth is rather nebulous. It is unclear whether the increase in human capital can increase economic growth, but we can imagine that if we have better human capital, if we have good labor force with skills and technology, if we have healthy people with sound health, definitely they can contribute more to our national income. So there is a relation, but we cannot establish this relation with data, with facts. Let us see a table which clears the relationship between physical capital, which clears the different relationship between this what we were reading, human capital and economic growth. The relationship between human capital and economic growth. From this table we can understand that there is a relation between human capital and economic growth. For example, human capital has increased if the infant mortality has decreased, if the life expectancy has increased from 37 to 67, if the literacy rate has increased from mere 16% to 76%. It means human capital has increased. The potential of human capital has increased, which has resulted in increase in per capita income which has resulted in increase in real per capita income from 7,000 to 77,000. So we can conclude that human this human capital has a relation with economic growth. Okay, because if we spend on human capital, it will increase our real per capita income. This we have established from this table. From where this data has come, this data is taken from economic survey. Okay, for various years. I have also told you the site from where you can get the economic survey. I have also told you about the site of the CSO. You can go there and you can find the economic survey. From economic survey, this data has been taken and this data is compiled. You cannot get this data from the same economic survey. Okay, you have to find see the economic survey of 1951, 81, 91, 2001 and 2016, 17. Only then you can able to compile this data and make this table. But you are getting ready-made table. You can note these facts and learn and keep this data in your memory. Table 5.1 shows that these sectors have grown simultaneously. If the literacy rate has increased, the real per capita income has also increased. The draft National Education Policy 2019. India aspires to take its place besides the United Nations and China as the third largest economy by 2030 to 2032. India is the sixth largest economy now, and we will reach $5 trillion economy in the 5-7 years, uh, taking us to the fourth or the fifth position. Okay, this is the projection. This is the projection for these years. For these years, by 2030 to 2032, we will be the third largest economy at over 10 trillion. हमारी कितनी इकोनॉमी का साइज हो जाएगा? What would be the size of Indian economy by 2032? $10 trillion economy, and we will be the third largest economy in the world. Okay, the $10 trillion economy will not be driven by the natural resource. We know we have plenty of natural resource, but we must have adequate quantity of human capital. Human capital will increase the size of our economy from $10 trillion to further. Okay, but for knowledge resources, okay, knowledge resource means we have to develop our human capital if we want to increase our economic growth. If we want to increase the size of our economy from $10 trillion economy to $20 trillion or $15 trillion economy, which we have expected we will achieve by 2050. We have not looked ahead. We have not looked ahead into the implications of being the world's third largest economy. Okay, we will be totally different. It will be a totally different environment. If we are the third largest economy, it means we have a high economic growth. The standard of living of people will improve because the income of people has now improved. They have skills. They are equipped with latest technology. We have lot of income budget to spend on our human resource. All these will have positive implications for our economy. Okay, are we ready to take our place besides the USA and China as top three largest economy of the world? And we confident of sustaining it in the following years? Okay, if we are taking places of these largest economies, that we are confident of sustaining that in the long term, whether we will be able to maintain our position as the third largest economy in the world. For this, we will need a knowledge society based on a robust education system with all the requisite attributes, all that qualities we need to maintain this position is a need. Okay, with the changing technology, with the changing ways of life, with the changing demand, we have to equip our society. India as a knowledge economy. Okay, different entrepreneurs, bureaucrats, and politicians are now advancing views. They are thinking that India can transform itself into a knowledge-based economy by using IT. Okay, we can see and we can in this present time are experiencing that our potential has increased and we are growing better uh, if we compare our situation with the past. Okay, now we will see the difference between human capital and human development. All these two seem same, but they are different. But they are different. Okay, let us see what is the difference between the two. Human capital considers education as a means, as a means to increase labor productivity. But human development is based on the idea that education and health are integral to human well-being. Is based on the idea that education and health are integral to human well-being. Because only when people have the ability to read and write and the ability to lead a long and healthy life, they will be able to make other choices which they value. So this is the first point of difference. Okay, in human capital means we are considering human capital just as a means. Means if we have better human capital, it will have better productivity, it will be the human resource will be better. Okay, we will get higher productivity. But human development uh, is based on the idea. Is based on the idea. We know that education and health, these are integral. This cannot be separated from human well-being. And human development means the people will have better life if they are good human capital. Okay. Next is human capital treats human beings as a means to an end. The end being the increase in productivity. Okay. If we are spending on education, if we are spending on health, it means we are increasing the productivity of an individual. Okay. What happens if the productivity has not increased? If the productive capacity of the person has not increased? So in that case, we will treat that human resource as human development. It means we are developing the human resource. Okay, human capital means increase, investment in human capital means increase in productivity. Okay, in human capital we are treating human beings as a means, सिर्फ एक साधन है जिससे हम प्रोडक्शन इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं. Okay, but in human capital we are not treating human beings as and in themselves. Human welfare should be increased through investment in education and health, even if such investment do not result in high level productivity. Okay. Therefore, basic education and basic health are important in themselves. This was the second point of difference, that human capital considers human beings as means, but human cap development means if there is no increase in their productivity, still we make investment in human development because it will ultimately lead to human welfare. Next, we will see the state of human capital formation in India. Okay, we will see what we have achieved in our long journey from independent. We have already learned that human capital formation is the outcome of investments in education, health, on-the-job training, migration, information. Okay. Of these, education and health are very important source. We all know that India is a federal country. Federal means it is a union of states, Sangh hai. And we know we have three-tier government structure: central government, union government, state government, दूसरा level. Third level is local government. Local government में क्या आता है? Municipal corporation, municipalities and village panchayats. All these things you know. The Constitution of India also mentions the functions which are carried out by the government, which are carried out by the state government, which are carried out by the central government, and the panchayats are the local government. So expenditure on both education and health are to be carried out simultaneously by all the three tiers of government. Okay, what are these three tiers? Union, state, and local government. So government distribute funds to these different tiers, and the investments in education and health takes place. Do you know who takes care of the education and health in India? We know that there is private sector, there is public sector, in which government is also taking care of education and health in India. Government intervention is must if we want to keep the private institution running for the welfare of the citizens of the country. Okay, you know that the private institutions they admit the person in their hospital, okay, school, healthcare center where the required services are not provided. If you admit yourself in a private hospital and finally they say that they don't have the instrument or the thing, you can shift your child to another institution, substantial amount of damage would have been done, नुकसान हो चुका होगा. Okay, so in this way the government checks these private institution whether they are doing work for the welfare of the masses or not, whether they are doing work for the welfare of the people or not. Okay, the government keep check on these private institutions. In these institutions, in this situation, the providers of education and health services acquire monopoly power and are involved in exploitation. In this context, the role of government is must. That private providers of these services adhere to the standards stipulated by the government and, and charge the correct prices. Okay, so government intervenes so that private institutions does not monopolize the things. Okay, then who regulate or control these private institutions so that all these work for the welfare of the common people. In the health sector, National Council of Educational Research and Training, in the educational sector, sorry, NCERT. Do you know about NCERT? You are reading NCERT book. UGC, University Grants Commission, and All India Councils of Technical Education, AICTE. These agencies keeps check on the education. Similarly, in the health sector, ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, National Medical Commission, okay, facilitate institutions which come under the health sector. In a developing country like India, with a large section of population living below the poverty line, many people cannot afford to access facilities of education and healthcare. Okay, so in this situation, many people are not able to reach the super specialty healthcare. They are not able to get the higher education. Okay, we have also mentioned that in our constitution that basic health and education is the right of the citizens. Okay, they must be provided free of cost for the deserving citizens and those from the socially oppressed classes. And over the period of time, we have seen that the union and state governments, all these have increased their expenditure in education and health sector. For example, in this COVID-19 period, the expenditure, the government has increased expenditure on health. Okay. Similarly, is the case with the education sector. Now we will see the education sector in India, the growth of education sector in India. We will see the expenditure of government in two ways: as a percentage of total, government expenditure, and a percentage of gross domestic product. Okay, so as a percentage, we have seen that education expenditure as a percentage of total government expenditure has increased from 7% to 15.7%. This is the data you need to keep in mind. And as a percentage of GDP from 0.64 to 4.3%. So over the period of time, this expenditure has not been uniform. Uniform means there has been regular rise and fall in this expenditure over the years. Okay, the elementary education, maximum of the expenditure we spend on elementary education. Elementary education क्या होती है up to primary. Okay, we spend a lot of resources on this primary elementary education because maximum children or maximum population of the people who are in the learning age group falls in elementary education. We also spend on the higher education, polytechnics in universities. The expenditure per capita on elementary education is lowest, but on the higher education it is highest. But it does not mean that we should reduce the expenditure on the higher education and divert our resources from higher education to elementary education. No, that should not be done, because in higher education we need more expenditure per capita. एक बंदे पे हमें ज़्यादा खर्च करना होता है. In 2014-15, the per capita public expenditure on elementary education differs considerably across states. For example, 34,000 per capita एक student पे expenditure 34,000 in Himachal Pradesh था, that and as low as 4,000 in Bihar per year. Okay, it means different states have different educational attainments. About 55 years ago, the Education Commission 1964-66, it has recommended 6% expenditure of GDP to be spent on education. Okay, Tapas Mazumdar Committee it was appointed by the government in 1999. You need to remember these facts. Indian Education Commission, this Education Commission was appointed in 64, 66. Mazumdar Committee was appointed in 1999. All they have suggested you need to remember. Mazumdar Committee has recommended 1.37 lakh crores for 10 years period, and to bring all the Indian children of the age of 6 to 14 years under the preview of education. Okay, our current expenditure as a percentage of GDP is 4%, which is inadequate. We know we need to step up this expenditure to 6% so that we can provide the required facilities to our children. They can be equipped with better training and better education. For that, the government should spend 6% of the GDP on education. In 2009, we have also implemented Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act to make education free for the children who have age between 6 to 14 years. Government of India also levy 2% education cess. You need to remember 2% education cess. Why government levy this, take this education cess from the people? Because to make expenditure on education sector. This amount is spent on elementary education. Government has also made sanctions a large outlay for the promotion of higher education. So government is also making expenditure on higher education. There is data. You need to remember this data. Adult literacy rate. Male and female is given. Adult literacy rate means those who have age 15 years and above. जिसकी age 15 years से ऊपर है. 1991 में 61% people थे जो literate थे. But in 2017-18 this has increased to 82%. Primary completion rate means जो primary age तक के लोग होंगे, है ना, बच्चे होंगे, उसमें मेल जो थे 78% थे जो प्राइमरी एजुकेशन कंप्लीट कर रहे, 61 थे फीमेल. नाउ इट हैज़ इंक्रीज टू 93% मेल्स एंड 96% फीमेल. प्राइमरी एजुकेशन में सुधार हुआ है. यूथ लिटरेसी रेट 15 ईयर्स से लेकर 24 ईयर्स तक मेल और फीमेल का. ठीक है, देखते हैं कितने परसेंट. 1990 76% ऑफ मेल्स व literate, and it has increased to 93%. Similarly, women literacy rate has also increased from 54% to 90%. Now we will see the educational achievements in India. So educational achievements in a country are indicated in terms of adult literacy level. Okay, you have seen the data: primary education completion rate, youth literacy rate. All this data you have seen in this table. Okay, this is a picture which shows that the child labor is there and the dropout, and because of dropout, children engaged in different labor works at a lower age. Future prospects. How we can look at the future? What are the future prospects? Whether they are bright or still a distant dream. Okay, the literacy rates for both adults as well as youth have increased. We know that literacy rate has increased. We have seen from the table also that literacy rate has increased, but illiterates in India is as much as the India's population was at the time of independence. But this data is quite higher if we see the data in absolute terms. If we see the million of people that are still illiterate, this figure is higher than that at the time of independence. In 50, the Constitution of India was passed by the Constituent Assembly. The directive principles of the Constitution that the government should provide free and compulsory education to the children who has aged 14 years within the 10 years of the commencement of this Constitution. But have we achieved this? We would have 100% literacy by now? No. Next is gender equity. Gender equity, better than before. Okay, we have achieved gender equity, means the difference between literacy rate has narrowed it has decreased. The difference between male and female literacy has decreased over the period of time. Still, the need to promote education for women in India is eminent from the following reasons. For example, we need to focus on the social status of women because women education makes a favorable impact on fertility rate, healthcare of women and children. Okay, if women is educated, if the girls are educated, their fertility rate would be better. They would be, you know, aware of the things they can keep in mind so that their health can be, improved. uh, all these things have impact on the health of the girls and women and children. If women are educated, they can rear their children in a better way, provide them education facilities. In fact, they can teach their children, so it make a difference in the society. Therefore, gender equity is must. Therefore, we cannot be complacent about the upward movement in the literacy rate, and we have miles to go in achieving 100% adult literacy. Okay, to achieve 100% literacy rate, we have to work. We have to work a lot. Higher education, a few takers. A few takers means, if we see this pyramid, it means higher education people, the students who could achieve higher education and who complete the higher education are very low. The education pyramid is steep, indicating lesser and lesser people reaching the higher education level. Higher education level बहुत कम लोग complete कर पाते हैं. And we also see that the unemployment among educated youth is the highest. Unemployment पढ़े लिखे लोगों के सबसे ज़्यादा है. NSSO का डाटा बताता है, reference year 2011-12, the rate of unemployment among youth males who studies graduation and above in rural areas was 19%, but in urban areas was 16%. The most severe affected ones were young rural female graduates. Nearly 30% of them were unemployed. Okay, so it means gender. We have to focus on gender equity. Why the females are more unemployed in rural areas? We need to think on that. We need to frame policy for that. 3 to 6% of the primary level educated youth in rural and urban areas were unemployed. It means the people who have lower educational attainments, they have better job opportunities. Oh, okay, they can do the unskilled work. Therefore, they have lower percentage in the total population of the labor force. The situation is yet to improve as indicated by the periodic labor force survey 2017-18. Therefore, the government should increase allocation for higher education. Okay, because we have seen that the population in the higher education institution is quite low if we compare it with the uh, individuals at the elementary education level. Now let us see the conclusion, what we can conclude. The economic and social benefit of human capital formation and human development are well known. Okay, we can imagine the benefits of economic, social benefits of human capital formation and human development. Union and state government over the period of time are marking substantial financial outlays. Outlays means expenditure. Okay, outlays mean expenditure. गवर्नमेंट ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ाया है गवर्नमेंट ने, और इनफैक्ट इंक्रीज ही करती जा रही है. The spread of these education and health services across different sectors of the society should be ensured so as to simultaneously attain economic growth and equity. Okay, these are the important aim of any country. Our country has also set this aim that we will continuously increase our economic growth and we will bring equity and social justice. Okay, if our health and education is better, definitely we can increase our economic growth and bring equity in the society, in our country. India has a rich stock of scientific and technical manpower in the world. The need of the hour is to better it qualitatively and provide such condition so that they can be utilized in India. Okay, so we have to make the environment better so that we can increase the our the, so that we can increase our human capital and increase the size of our economy, increase our human capital, increase the rate of our national income, increase the rate of in fact growth of national income. These are the things you can read. This chapter ends here. These are the NCERT questions. These questions are must. You should write these in your notebooks and learn all these question answers. Thank you for watching.